stay low. Welcome to my FlowCast, skaters. Today I'm talking about two new endless blading frames, one of which is something the skate world really needed. The other one's dope too. I'm also going to be talking about individualized skater or kinetic identity, as well as the differences and similarities of ice skating and inline skating. There's even a super important tip for rollerbladers who are transitioning from inline to ice, how to manage your hockey stop and slide. So buckle up for my meandering, convoluted skate review and FlowCast. Endless blading has gone and done it again. They put something new on the market, a frame specifically for the 80mm wheel, not heavily rockered. This very subtle rocker reduces that sticky feeling of a new flat setup, where when you turn it feels like you have to bend rails with your legs to carve. I also received a set of 80mm wheels from Endless Blading. Endless Blading has my favorite wheels, the right amount of grip and slip, as I always say about the Endless wheels. So as they say on their website, it is a very subtle rocker. I think it's less than half of my Endless 80 Mercury, and I found that subtle. Is there another word for subtle? Discreet. A very discreet rocker. So I'll give you the information that Endless Frame put on their website just to make sure I hit the most pertinent points. I'll even do it in my cheesy narrator voice for you. The Endless 80 Ultra is the ultimate 4x80mm frame for urban skaters who demand the best. Yeah. It embodies the pinnacle of Endless Blading's engineering expertise, delivering unmatched speed, responsiveness, and durability, which redefine the 80mm experience. Why 4x80? It's arguably the most popular setup in inline skating history. Yet no one has elevated it for true, high-performance skating until now. But from the ground up, the Endless 80 features an ultra-stiff structure for maximum power transfer, zero lag, responsiveness, and a solid predictable platform for executing the most technical tricks and techniques. Our signature enhanced flat rocker delivers the feel of a perfectly worn-in flat setup, efficient for power pushes, yet smooth and controlled for carving. Whether you're blasting through the city streets, shredding the skate park, or flowing on the pump track, the Endless 80 Ultra is built for you to push your limits. It'd be great for hockey too, come to think of it. Okay, that's getting tiring. Chevy trucks, made in America by Americans for Americans. So let's look at a few of the points, a few other bullet points on this. It's recommended for all skill levels, recommended for boot size 43 and below. So 165mm mount, not compatible with UFS boots, including FR skates. UFR. Wheelbase is 249mm, 245mm partner. Folks. Brake compatibility, none. So there. One frame set includes 2 frames, 8 aluminum ultra axles, lovely axles, 4 ultra washers. They come in stealth black, ultraviolet, titanium gray. The satin silver frames have these cyberpunk pink axles. And again, they're very subtle, very discreet, despite being cyberpunk. I opted for the boring guy setup. I mean, the functional assault skater setup, yeah. I don't need nothing fancy. CNC mold, blah, blah, blah. Weight, 276 grams without spacers and axles. And the patent, yeah, it's pending. So that's most of their information. See that ridge running down the skate? That's a recent addition to the Endless frame. This small, sleek reinforcement makes this an extremely stiff, responsive frame. There's also a little bridge at the back, a little brace there, a little arch that stiffens this frame up. But these subtle changes, though discreet as they are, God, I need a thesaurus. But yeah, these subtle changes to the frames were quite tangible. 80mm wheels are my first love. I feel most agile, explosive, and adventurous on 80mm wheels. If I think about rollerblading strictly from a movement point of view, I would never be out of the 80mm. So cool. I currently ride 84mm wheels mainly, and that's because it gives my skating in the city more speed, which means I can put more energy into skating properly or playing around, if I make the skating in between more fluid and efficient with a slightly bigger wheel. This low stiff ride of the Endless Ultra 80 feels a great deal more like the power of steel on ice than I was prepared for. I had the sensation of getting more power and speed out of them, but also my timing was just a little off. I felt like I have to train my neurology and foot speed in order to maximize this frame without my own kinetic lag impeding power transfer. I feel like my muscular responses are calibrated to a frame with more flex. That's a lot. See, in other words, a little less bend in the frame made things snappier. The stiffness of this frame is also enhanced by the fact that it's simply a shorter frame. So it's important to understand when I'm talking about slow and fast moments at the end of a stride, I'm talking a feeling, really, hundredths of a second difference here. But sometimes the incremental changes have this compound effect. I'm looking forward to testing these under timed circumstances to understand how this responsiveness translates to quantifiable performance. I am super pleased that this skate felt so specialized for acceleration and maneuverability as well. The rimmers aren't going to have a chance at a green light. I would definitely choose this to play hockey in. Stopping and starting quickly gives you a lot of extra room out there. When I'm spot skating, it often turns into what I would do on ice, which is another reason I love 80mm wheels, because they help me mimic ice skating form better with a smaller wheelbase. I found myself vexing over how I was going to improve my foot speed. Improving foot speed happens so incrementally unless you go to extreme measures. So I was thinking of hitting a steep downhill for sprints. How am I going to get there? Will I burn myself out skating up the hill? I got to pick a warm day because it's going to be a pretty difficult exercise. Am I going to pull a hamstring? And then, like a bolt of lightning out of the blue, I knew the answer. I remembered the answer of how to make my feet faster for inline skating, but more about that later. I have always tended towards a stiffer frame. I really don't like the ones where the supporting structure and the cutaways are designed according to decoration. When it comes to a performance-based product, you at least owe it to us to pretend that the frame design is based on function. Here's my first favorite skate ever, my Nike Zoom Air. This frame felt like it was made of cast iron, but looking at it now, it seems a little flimsy. I went through 4 pairs of those skates in under 2 years. The eyelets pulled out, but I love them. I called them my cruise missiles. The Chronos Rain was a super stiff frame. It felt like military-grade armor. I was also lucky enough to trial the Sapphire Blue Endless 80 MK2 frame. It's an absolutely beautiful color and it reminds me that my favorite color is in fact blue. It's kind of sparkle. Once again, I'm just going to read straight off the website what they have to say about these gems. Let's do it in a semi-normal voice. The Endless 80 MK2 frame is a precise, machined multi-setup frame designed for urban freeride skates like Seba FR skates and FR series and other 165mm compatible skates. Building on the success of the original Endless frame, this new iteration incorporates both functional and aesthetic enhancements while preserving the signature Endless look, with improved power transfer and responsiveness delivering a smoother, more dynamic skating experience. So here's something weird. I've been skating the Endless frame for a few years now. I've tried a few different frames, but after trying the Ultra frame, these frames, which are very similar to what I've been riding, they felt a little bit like bouncy. Like I could feel the flex on them around the corners. But they are stiff frames. The Ultra was such a radical experience that these feel somehow gentler. I'm drawn toward the more circular and continuous lines where with the Ultra I felt like I needed to sprint and stop and carve with some degree of impunity, venomosity. So in my sprints, I'm going to preempt a sluggish performance by admitting that I took an entire month off skating. I know, it's terrible. I wanted to miss it, I wanted to be bored, I wanted to be rested and stronger. And that all happened. But the downside of it is I didn't get any faster while I was lifting weights and sitting in the sauna. It really is true. If you're not getting faster, you're getting slower. That's just the way life is. So I did take all that time off because I wanted to perform better on skates. I didn't want to get to the point where I was a couple of years ago, where I was just hobbling around and trying to find imaginative ways to get out of the car. I was a shit show a few years ago. So that's a very long-winded way for me to ask you not to judge these upcoming quick starts. Think of me as a bear coming out of hibernation, a little blurry-eyed and stunned. So the big hope I saw in my sprints was that they were extremely uniform. It was actually quite freaky. I did 3 sprints only from the exact same spot, and I timed it to the point where that little drainage square is. And yeah, I was a little flabbergasted that the times were exactly the same, right to the 10th of a second. When I overlap 2 separate attempts, I see a uniformity that tells me I'm able to access my previous form, and that's good. Everything is firing symmetrically. I could have used shorter, nastier strides in the first 6. So it took me a good hour after my skate session on the MK2 to realize that I had an answer as to how to improve my foot speed for the Ultra. Ice skating. With a shorter contact point, less friction on the glide, a lighter skate, ice skating is just a faster experience all the way around. So I went to a rink that, not done yet, that's been frozen by nature. It turns into a rink after my first 2 sessions on it. It's going to be weird. I haven't been on ice skates since like last February or March. So let's see what I'm like on my first time around here. This is not officially open. There's little rocks embedded in here, so I have to be careful. Could stop in a minute. Feels nice. On the carbs. Oh, little tippy forward back, of course. I created a little tornado back here. I've marked off every place I've seen a rock. That rock is not going anywhere. So this is set up to be a rink. I'm in a really bad part here. Whoa! I didn't do many sprints on this day though. I let myself run a little bit here and there, but mostly I was enjoying my edges and getting lost in the flow. When I ice skate, I'm generally looking for interesting ways to change direction. I like to find patterns and then disrupt patterns. I don't consider myself a wizard skater, though I do take and enjoy some of their moves. I would call myself more of a warlock skater, an independent guy doing his own thing. Guess what I'm looking for is the expression that my own anatomy craves. It doesn't really include twirls. Once in a while I find myself in a position where I enjoy a little spin. But maybe if I practiced them more, I'd really groove out on it. Groove out? What am I, 90? At the very best, I learned how to do really nice twirls and I feel dizzy at the end, I think. There's always room to expand and grow, but I really love the freedom to explore and master before moving on. This is where I find true satisfaction. When it comes to skills acquisition, I'm not looking to bolster my inventory or fill my resume. I'm building and enjoying my own kinetic identity. So in my relative isolation, without the dazzling spins, I am the warlock, creeping and slicing across the splintered glass of the spiteful winter. Insert evil laugh. I love the flow and energy transfers I get with subtle, dramatic moves on ice, which is what the rocker has brought to my inline skating. That ability to change direction on one or both feet in ways that weren't previously accessible to me. I'm not saying they couldn't have been, but I've been drawn into the transition game a lot more since riding Endless Frames. I had a couple falls in this session, but I was careful to keep it short and sensible. I'm glad I was in slow-mo for that one. I skated until I was just slightly tired, and then I tapped out. It's nice to finish fiending for just a little more. So I haven't talked really much about my skating while it's happening. I've talked about everything else but. So for the next session, we'll talk a little bit about the ice skating that's unfolding. One hotel had this thing emptied and stripped and cleaned. They installed this big mesh at the bottom, expertly trimmed. And then for days they put layer after layer.
No, we can't go on it yet, Ernie. Soon. Soon, Ernie.
But yeah, it turned out beautifully. And I really shouldn't be telling anybody about it. So down at the Bentway, I have my first experience of the year there. And by year, I mean the entire season. I'm hoping to explore my speed a little more, get a few more sprints in, and feel the good old-fashioned jet below me. I do like to warm up quite a bit before I sprint to try all my edges. I play around. I do get a little wizardy here. And I was also there to play around a little bit too. The right playlist almost means I'm dancing despite being Mr. Utilitarian. Oh, feeling up my speed a little here. Drifting into the corner. So much traction on the ice compared to rollerblades. And this feels so nice to do the big carves. Bobby Orr could do that quite well. He could skate into the offensive zones, coast on one foot with a great big carve and decide to shoot at any point in his arc. It threw a lot of players off. Bobby Orr also said everything in skating is circular. So I really feel when I think about the looping of my arms and the pattern of my stride. So not necessarily circles, but a lot of loops, like infinity loops, like number 8's happening. So I'm really shortening my first few strides here, which means I'm quicker out of the blocks. I'm in a slightly lower posture for my ice sprints, and that's because I can get lots of dig even if my skates are angled into the ice. I like to stay up nice and tall on my inline sprints, so my wheels are a little more upright, and I get more traction. That really is the big difference between inline and ice, is that an upright blade in ice skating means less traction, and a slanted blade means more. That's why stopping is so hard for inline skaters who transition for the first time to ice skates, because they're used to having better slide the more they angle their feet, their blades. It's far easier to slide with your skates almost upright on ice skates than it is on a deep slant. That's when you get the big snow and a juddering stop. There are a lot of differences as far as front to backward balance as well. But let's just say everything is better on ice skates. More control over sliding, more control over grip. Easier access to spins and smoother falls. The only problem is you can't do it throughout the city. So the freedom part of it just isn't there. I love when I'm ice skating that I can hear when I'm limping. So I can hear when I'm putting less power into one side than the other. It's so apparent, especially at this bent way. So I have to circle back and tie this back in with inline skating. I forgot about that. So what's my point? Yeah, the ice skating is going to make me ready for the Endless 80 Ultra. So that is my review of the MK2 and the Ultra by Endless Blading. And Endless Blading wheels, my faves. So how do I end this? Aim high, stay low. God, I'm boring me. Need a new catchphrase. Skate until you bleed from the ear holes.
That was nice.
Stay low.